as the title says, it's not just about reporting war, although it is a history of reporting war. I start quite a long time ago with Herodotus, 2500 BC. He was the very first man who was in a war, watched it at first hand, and then reported it. And then I trace war reporting all the way through the Crimea, the First World War, the Second World War. I bring in some of my own experiences. I covered 18 odd wars, the last one being Iraq. And then I make the point that, as the title might suggest, this is just one war, us reporting a war. But we fight on two fronts, war reporters. We're fighting the politicians over here, the establishment. We're fighting the military, who won't let us go places or try and stop us with censorship saying things that we think we ought to say. And thirdly, we're fighting the two sides who are fighting each other, because nowadays, you know, they're shooting at us too, and they're shooting the messenger. And having got that through, I then profile 6 of, you might call them my paragons. I start with William Russell, the very first British war reporter. He called himself the father of a miserable tribe, which is how he describes us. And then I go through one of the great war artists of the First World War, Villiers, one of the great reporters of the First World War, Nicholson. And then I profile an American reporter called Martha Gellhorn, who reported the Spanish Civil War, and she was the very, very first woman ever to go to the front line. She broke the taboos. Then my special paragon, because we both started on the same newspapers, was James Cameron, and he needs no introduction, I hope. And I end up with an old buddy of mine who is still alive. She's 100 years old, Claire Hollingworth of the Telegraph. So that's really what the book's about. A little bit about war reporting, my own experiences in it, and then profiles in 6 chapters of the greats.
What exactly goes through a war correspondent's mind when they hear that a state of war does exist, or the equivalent?
Well, I've always said, and I've been quoted many times, that the only time I was ever afraid of a war is my fear that I wouldn't be sent to it. It's in the blood, and once you've done it once, you have to keep doing it.
Yeah. So war journalism has been in the news quite a lot recently with the death of Mary Colville.
Yeah, sure.
And I mean, do you think anything's going to change with war reporting, or is it just something we're shocked by, but you know, that's what the job is?
You know, it's not sour grapes, I knew Mary, but I thought the fuss about death of a war reporter is overdone. I mean, when you think that she would agree, I mean, she must be appalled by the fuss that was made about her death, because she was there watching hundreds dying, and I think we should always bear in mind that we volunteer to go to these places. The people that we're reporting on, the people who are being killed, have no option.
And you recently took part in one of ITV's documentaries, Return to the Falklands.
Yeah.
What was your biggest memory of the Falklands from when you reported from there?
The cold, I suppose. The cold, the dismalness of it all, the feeling that it was never going to end. It was a wretched war, and most of all, you had the ghastly, the certainty that it should never have happened. I've just been back there, and I must say, it's not a country that's anything like the one I left 30 years ago. It's blossoming, it's booming, it's prosperous, it's happy, and they're not at all fussed by the sound of rattling sabers in Argentina, believe me.
So, since you started out in your career with war reporting, what do you think has been the biggest change?
I don't think it's changed that much, except technology. Technology's been the biggest change. I mean, it would take me hours to explain the differences, but nowadays it's much easier for reporters because of technology, but it's also much harder for them. And in my days, when you jumped on an aircraft and went off to war, you were on your own. It was your story, your script, your decisions. And at the end, when it appeared on the television screens in Britain, that was your story. Nowadays, you're at the end of a phone wherever you are in the world, doing what the bosses back in London, who have no idea what's going on where you are, calling the tunes. It's much harder today, physically, because you're always in touch with the foreign desk. It's easier with technology, but then technology, of course, makes you on the air 24 hours a day. You know, every hour these guys are on the air. I wouldn't want to do it now. I'm very glad I'm at the end of a career rather than at the beginning of one. It's very, very hard when you're in a war situation, and Martha Gellhorn spelt it out beautifully, is that you really don't know what's going on. All you're doing is reporting what you see. You may not see the whole picture. And to be on call now, round the clock as reporters are, must be a nightmare for them. And maybe because they always have to be in front of camera, on the hour, you know, something must be lost.
Yeah.
And I think that what is lost is the overview.
So you talked about several of the people you profile in the book. Who would you say was the most interesting person to have profiled?
Oh dear, they're all interesting, they're all fascinating. My favourite has to be James Cameron, because he was such a beautiful writer. He didn't go to as many wars as the rest, but when he died, one of the eulogies, one of the homilies, said that he raised journalism to the height of literature, and that's a goer for me.